When the world gathers this summer for 2026 FIFA World Cup, the largest sporting event on the planet, millions of fans will descend on stadiums and fan zones in Seattle to Miami, but fewer people are noticing something else. A domestic immigration enforcement agency is now embedded in the event securities architecture. So we're going to explore why ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement Agency, is playing a key security role at the World Cup, why that matters far beyond the pitch, and what it reveals about how state power is being re-envisioned for public spectacle. So earlier this week, ICE's acting director Todd Lyons, in testimony before the House of Homeland Security Committee, confirmed that ICE will not pause operations during the World Cup and will serve as a key part of the security apparatus connected to the tournament. This declaration came during pointed questions from Democratic Republican Nellie Powell of New Jersey, whose district includes East Rutherford MetLife Stadium, the host of 8 matches, including the final. So, as she raised the possibilities that ICE's presence could discourage fans from attending or make them feel unsafe. So, the acting director responded that the agency role is tied to ensuring security of all participants and visitors, aligning ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Unit with broader federal protective functions. Now, think about this for a moment. If you were an international fan planning to travel for the World Cup, would the presence of a domestic immigration enforcement agency change how safe you feel? Your answer says a lot about how people experience power versus protection on a global stage. Too many immigration advocates and civil liberties observers this move basically raises real concerns about perception and consequences, and not just for undocumented migrants. ICE has already deeply controversies in the US associated with the mass detentions and deportations of under recent administrations, right? Controversial raids and enforcement practices, expansions that have drawn protests during domestic events. The idea of ICE in a global festival like the World Cup, we're not talking about the Super Bowl or any other the Olympics. We're talking about millions. Okay, this is the most viewed sporting event in the planet. The World Cup, football, or some of the Americans call it soccer. Fans, okay, including children, parents, and tourists from every continent, suggest that federal enforcement policy is bleeding into civilian life and international engagement in a way that many find unsettling. So, on Reddit and fans' forums, discussions show a blend of confusion, concern, and outright rejection of ISIS involvement. One thread notes that the World Cup security apparatus is a complex puzzle, but the role the agency plays ordinarily tied to deportation at a center for public safety discussions here. Another group of fans of the World Cup expressed that they fear the ongoing aggression that's happening. Measures could and will discourage attendance this summer, which we've been seeing thousands of tickets being cancelled by fans. So, labeling the situation concerning a data point that immigration policy can shape sports attendance policy patterns. So, here's where the story intersects with the broader systems, right? Hosting the World Cup involves overlapping jurisdictions, local police, private security, federal agents and agencies, and multinational corporation stakeholders. The official line is that bringing ICE into this environment is about intelligence and coordinations, not deportations at stadium gates. But critics are arguing the world choice or the word choice, that particular word choice, matters, and how institution frames security influences public's perceptions. So, for example, civil rights organizations in Florida recently warned foreign visitors that immigration enforcement tactics could affect the travel to matches there. These advisories suggest carrying identifications and check-ins with one's consulate, recommendations that stem from enforcement anxieties far broader than sports, right? So this is why ICE calls a security role intersects, right? Their role intersects with people feels, it means a shadow of enforcement over celebrations. This is the kind of development that doesn't just fit neatly into headlines, right? It's not just ICE at the World Cup. It's about how domestic enforcement institutions are repurposed for global visibility and legitimacy. That's not trivial, it's structural. Now, from a local government, responses have not been limited to fans' concerns online. In Seattle, the King County Executive publicly announced measures aimed at limiting ICE enforcement during the tournament, including preventing ICE from performing civil immigration operations in certain county-controlled areas, garages, and lots. So this local pushback is reflecting the broader skepticism towards federal enforcement's presence there. In Vancouver, cities, activists, and residents drafted letters opposing any involvement of ICE in Vancouver's World Cup events, citing safety fears and insisting that a global celebration should not bear the imprint of domestic enforcement. These reactions are not isolated. They speak to a wider global concern about blending public celebrations with the machinery of state power. Remember that this discussion is happening against a backdrop of global scrutiny over US immigration policy. In Italy earlier last week, as the Winter Olympics have begun, hundreds of people protested against the presence of Homeland Security investigation agents at the Winter Olympics, arguing that enforcement bodies should not be part of international events and they have no jurisdictions in Milan. Now, the Italian authorities have clarified that ICE agents would operate only behind diplomatic channels. The backlash underscored how sensitive these issues are on the world stage. So the hostility reflects a broader narrative international audiences increasingly view as politicized and exclusionary. Now that narrative is entering what is supposed to be unifying global celebration. So if this doesn't make you rethink the idea that sports is separate from politics, then nothing will. As we move closer to the summer kickoff, we'll continue to follow not just the games, but the politics of security behind them. And in our next episode, we'll expand on the call for the World Cup boycott from civil society groups in Africa and beyond. This isn't just sports, it's a statecraft in jerseys and cleats. So stay informed, stay safe. Leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.